Ashley and Jeremy celebrated their 20th wedding anniversary this year. Their family life was typically mundane, predictable, and routine. Living with them was their daughter Dorothy, who had just entered her second year of university. Her parents were incredibly proud of Dorothy for securing a place in the university's subsidized program on her own and excelling in her first year. Ashley refrained from using her position as a university lecturer to help Dorothy in any way. In the same class with Dorothy was Howard, a charming and confident young man who radiated maturity beyond his years. He attracted the attention of all the girls in the group, including Ashley herself, despite the significant age difference. Despite Howard's charisma, he was not the most diligent or capable student. After receiving a less than perfect grade for his work in Ashley's class, he approached her desk as the rest of the students filed out of the classroom. While Dorothy waited for him in the distance, Howard asked to speak to Ashley alone, gestured for her to leave, and closed the door behind her. Ashley, having gathered her things, asked Howard if he needed anything. Remembering his paper with completely wrong answers, she advised him to get better for the next assignment. When Howard moved closer to her, insinuating that he was underestimated, Ashley felt uncomfortable that he was invading her personal space. She was stunned by his audacity and blushed at the unspoken hints that came to her mind. At that moment, he possessed a certain natural charm that captivated her. As he left, the man smirked contentedly, making the woman embarrassed, and lowered her gaze. As the man gathered his things and left the office, his daughter Dorothy waited patiently on the other side of the door. "Dorothy," he remarked before leaving, "keep in mind that I am capable of much more than that." In the days that followed, the woman could not escape the recollection of the incident that had taken place after school. She felt shame and rekindled feelings that reminded her of her youth when she was in the early stages of her relationship with her husband. Unfortunately, their current dynamic was a far cry from those passionate emotions. Their marriage lacked thrills and had become routine. While the woman appreciated the stability in their relationship, she couldn't escape the feeling that their bond was built solely on habit. 2 weeks had passed since that meeting. During that time, Howard had been pulling away from her, and then suddenly he was looking at Ashley with the same intensity he had in class. The stark contrast made her question her own sanity. She couldn't understand why this young man had such a strong influence on her, and she was curious as to how he felt about her. She began to envision more than just a teacher/student bond. In the next class, Ashley stumbled and interrupted herself while talking, realizing that Howard had completely occupied her thoughts. Sensing that the teacher was agitated, Howard took his seat and smirked. As the class ended and the students began to leave after receiving their assignments, Ashley suddenly spoke up. "Howard, stay a few minutes." She couldn't believe she had said it out loud. Howard smiled and sat back down in his seat. It was just the two of them now, and Ashley realized that he wasn't going to approach her first. A woman approached the young man. "Have you thought about it?" he asked, turning to face her. Ashley, not understanding the question, asked, "About what?" "About what I'm capable of," he replied, his hands already exploring her thighs. That was their last meeting in the study. They weren't looking forward to meeting again to study together. Ashley prudently closed the door from the inside and gave herself over to the moment. Their secret affair had been going on for a month now. They'd look for an available office during break or sneak out together after class. Outside of the university, they never crossed paths. Ashley wasn't going to publicize their relationship, especially since she was a married teacher. But Howard insisted on more. The young man kept urging her to leave her husband, convincing her that she didn't love him anymore since she was spending her time elsewhere. Usually, when he brought up the subject, Ashley would quickly button up her dress and say that she had urgent business to attend to. But the young man was relentless. He noticed that Ashley's daughter, Dorothy, was trying to get close to him, and this time he decided to take advantage of it. Pretending to be interested in Dorothy's friendship, he asked to visit her after an evening stroll. Without informing her parents, The girl invited him to dinner. When Ashley stepped out into the hallway to greet her daughter, she was stunned. Her young lover had shown up at her house. Such a thing could not have been imagined even in her worst nightmares. The young man looked at her slyly, his eyes full of desire. Ashley felt awkward during dinner and was mostly silent. She prayed that Howard wouldn't say anything inappropriate to her husband, but he chose his words carefully and made no gestures that might give away their connection. Obviously, he just wanted to convey to her the seriousness of his intentions. Dorothy, too, was serious. She had developed feelings for the charming classmate, but Howard saw her only as a friend, keeping in touch with her mother. One day, after another intimate meeting in the office, Howard brought up the subject of Ashley leaving the family again. These words struck her unpleasantly in the heart, as she herself was confused by her duplicity and the direction of her life. "That's enough. I've reached my limit in dealing with you. Either you appreciate the present moment or we end this." The woman replied sharply and pulled her skirt from under her lover in annoyance. In his typical fashion, Howard skipped out of the room. Annoyed that Ashley hadn't heeded his words or met his expectations, he decided to teach her a lesson. After all, no one dared address him like that. As a retaliatory measure, he started a relationship with Ashley's daughter, Dorothy. He manipulated her by falsely confessing that he had long had certain feelings for her. At that moment, the girl was blown away. She had long had feelings for Howard and longed for him to see her as more than just a friend. Ashley didn't find out about her daughter's relationship until a week later, when she noticed that Dorothy's schoolwork had taken a back seat. As she watched Dorothy and Howard's constant skipping of lectures, the pieces of the puzzle added up to an even more unpleasant picture. Suddenly finding herself feeling jealous, Ashley simultaneously felt sympathy for her daughter. It was clear to her that the boyfriend was manipulating Dorothy for his own selfish purposes, playing with her emotions. Ashley wrote Howard a message urging him to stop manipulating Dorothy's feelings, but the next day, the situation escalated. Entering the classroom that morning and immersed in her thoughts, she made her way to her desk to put down her textbooks. After a moment, she noticed the unusual smiles of her students. Throwing a glance at the board, she was surprised to see one phrase scrawled in red marker: "Do you like it younger?" Ashley turned pale, quickly grabbed a rag and wiped away the disturbing words. She then turned sharply to the students in the room, realizing that Dorothy was not among them. Throughout the lesson, she watched the students whispering, exchanging glances and giggling quietly. Anxious thoughts raced through her mind as she was sure they knew everything, thanks to him sharing the details. As soon as class was over, Ashley quickly gathered her textbooks into her bag and sprinted out into the hallway, searching for her daughter with her eyes. Dorothy was standing at the window with her friend, looking depressed. Her mother hurried to her, wanting to assess the situation and understand what she knew. The girl saw her mother from a distance and hurried away after hearing the rumors. Poor girl, Ashley sympathized and headed home herself, periodically dialing Howard's number to find out the extent of his exposure. Soon Dorothy entered the apartment. Ashley moved to hug her, but the girl shied away from the sudden outpouring of maternal affection. "I overheard everything. What's going on?" she exclaimed, rushing past her mother. Meanwhile, Jeremy had emerged from the kitchen, staring intently at the screen of his phone before shifting his gaze to his wife and daughter. "Dorothy, could you give us some privacy? We need to talk to Mom," Jeremy whispered. Dorothy quickly glanced at her father and his phone, then stepped toward him and snatched the device from his hands. Gasping in shock at the sight of the screen, she covered her mouth with her hand, dropped the phone, and ran out of the apartment, slamming the door behind her. The phone landed face up and showed the picture with Ashley that Howard had sent. "I think it would be best if you left," Jeremy stated coldly. Ashley stood neither alive nor dead, tears streaming down her cheeks. Their stable life had been shattered overnight. Jeremy had gone from a young man in love to a vengeful figure. Divorce soon followed, with neither husband nor daughter willing to support Ashley or maintain communication. Ashley's only refuge became her job. Fortunately, rumors of her relationship with Howard did not reach upper management, allowing her to keep her job. Every time she entered the training facility, Ashley felt a sense of unease, not knowing what new things Howard might bring. Surprisingly, his thirst for revenge had subsided, and Ashley was content that he was no longer interfering in their relationship. During this difficult period, Ashley sought comfort. Howard gave her the comfort she so desperately needed and rekindled their relationship. However, the longevity of their bond was questionable given the questionable circumstances. Howard, infatuated with a peer, gradually lost interest in Ashley. Despite recognizing the transience of their love, their separation plunged her back into misery. The temporary distraction from her family's turmoil was gone, allowing her to fully immerse herself in her own thoughts. Regret gnawed at her, realizing that she had been foolish to get involved with a student and destroy the family she had painstakingly built. But remorse couldn't undo the damage she'd done.